Imagine you write a piece of code, right? And it takes this tedious, like 10-hour data entry job and perfectly automates it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, which sounds amazing on paper.
It does, but by standard business logic, I mean, if you're charging your client by the hour, you just completely destroyed your own income.
Right. It's a paradox that trips up so many technically brilliant founders, honestly.
In the AI era, being highly efficient can actually bankrupt you if you don't fundamentally flip how you price things.
Exactly. The old rules of trading time for money are just, they're collapsing. We are firmly in a new era where value is completely untethered from human hours. I mean, the experimental novelty phase of AI, that's over.
We are definitely in the practical revenue generating era now.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to completely cut through that relentless hype and extract a really practical, actionable blueprint for building an AI business in this landscape, right now in 2026.
Yeah, and whether you're, looking to pivot your career or you're prepping to launch a startup, or maybe you're just intensely curious about how all this technology is actually being monetized today.
Right, we're here to give you those aha moments without drowning you in information overload.
And our source material today provides a really rigorous framework to do just that. We're diving into a comprehensive manual titled The AI Business Startup Guide by Ankush Chauhan.
It's such a great read.
It is. It's targeted specifically at aspiring entrepreneurs, and what makes it incredibly useful is its deep focus on the Indian startup ecosystem.
Yeah, that specific lens gives us hard numbers on costs, legal compliance, and growth strategies that apply universally, but they're grounded in a very dynamic, fast-moving market.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this because before anyone writes a single line of code or registers a domain name, we really have to look at the reality of the 2026 landscape
We do.
because the data shows a staggering shift. Like back in 2024, AI startups captured 42% of all venture capital dollars.
Yeah, which is a massive indicator of sustained investor confidence. But the nature of what those investors are actually funding has matured significantly.
How so?
Well, they're no longer throwing millions at teams trying to build the next generic foundation model from scratch. The market is demanding operational efficiency. It's about finding specific, measurable bottlenecks in traditional industries and just solving them.
So it sounds like the wild prospecting days of the gold rush are totally over, and now the real money is in selling highly customized shovels, building the specific railroads for individual industries.
That is a perfect analogy, yeah.
Like you aren't trying to build a generic all-knowing digital brain. You're building a tool that helps a specific auto factory predict when a very specific robotic arm is going to fail.
What's fascinating here is how the barrier to entry for building those customized shovels has practically vanished. Yeah,
Really?
I mean, you don't necessarily need to be a hardcore programmer to capitalize on this anymore.
Right.
The manual breaks down four primary business models working today. And the most accessible one, the AI Automation Agency, relies heavily on low-code or no-code tools.
So let's explore how that agency model actually functions in practice. Because instead of writing custom software from scratch, you're essentially acting as a high-tech plumber.
High-tech plumber, I love that.
Right. You go into a traditional business, figure out where their data flow is clogged, and build automated workflows to unblock it.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. You use visual platforms like Make.com or Zapier to connect disparate software together.
Okay.
Think of an API, an application programming interface, as a digital waiter taking orders between different restaurant kitchens.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you might connect a client's CRM, like Salesforce, to an AI model,
Yeah.
and then seamlessly over to their email system.
So a non-technical founder who just understands business logic can build incredibly valuable workflows.
Exactly. And they can charge monthly retainers of anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 just for maintaining them.
Wow. But if you want to move beyond being a high-tech plumber and actually own the pipes, that requires shifting to the second model, right?
Right.
The product business or software as a service.
Yes. Here, you're developing proprietary software that solves an industry problem at scale, which obviously requires a much heavier initial investment.
And a totally different skill set, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. You are no longer just dragging and dropping visual workflows. You are engineering an application from the ground up.
Which is still easier than the two heavyweight categories the guide mentions.
Oh, for sure.
You have the platform business where you're building the infrastructure that enables other developers to create their own tools. I mean, that requires massive venture funding.
And incredibly long development cycles.
Right. And finally, data as a service, where the true product isn't the software at all, but the monetization of massive, refined data sets.
And choosing the right model dictates your entire trajectory. I mean, a solo entrepreneur with $20,000 shouldn't try to build a platform business.
Definitely not.
They should start an agency, learn the specific problems a niche industry faces, and perhaps evolve that specialized knowledge into a product business later.
So let's say I've decided to build a product for the dental industry.
Okay.
I've got my concept for an automated scheduling tool. The instinctive next step for any driven entrepreneur is to lock themselves in a room, grab their tech stack, and just start building the prototype.
Right. And doing that is essentially walking directly into the most dangerous trap for new founders.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Building without validating demand is the absolute fastest way to burn through your capital and your morale.
Interesting.
The absolute mandate here is do not write code until you have verified that real people will open their wallets for the solution.
Okay, I understand the underlying logic there, but asking people to pay for something that doesn't exist yet feels incredibly risky, almost deceptive.
Feels weird, yeah.
Like, wait, so the guide is telling me to sell tickets to a concert before I'd even booked the band. Isn't it risky or deceptive to sell something that doesn't actually exist yet? If I take a clinic's money and can't deliver, isn't that fraud?
It's a super common fear. But the mechanism of validation isn't about trickery. It's about rigorous risk mitigation.
Okay, explain that.
Well, building a specialized product without validation is like building a highly engineered, multi-million-dollar toll bridge before you even check if there's a river there.
Oh, wow.
Right. You might build an architectural marvel, but no one is going to pay a toll to cross dry land.
That reframes it perfectly. You have to prove the river exists.
Exactly.
So how do you do that ethically?
By offering a pre-order or early access at a steep discount and being completely transparent about the development timeline.
Okay, so just being honest.
Yeah. You build a landing page that says, I am developing an automated appointment scheduling system specifically for dental clinics to eliminate no-shows. If this solves a massive headache for you, secure your lifetime early bird spot now for $50.
And what's the target there?
The target metric to hit before you start development is 50 to 100 email signups, or ideally, 5 to 10 actual paid commitments.
So if you run targeted ads to dental clinic owners and nobody clicks or nobody pulls out their credit card, you just saved yourself 6 months of useless coding.
Exactly. You realize the pain point wasn't actually that strong.
Or your messaging was entirely wrong.
Right. It forces you to perfect how you communicate the value proposition. And once you get those 10 paid commitments, you've proven the river exists.
Nice.
Then and only then do you move to building the MVP, the minimum viable product.
And the rules the guide sets for an MVP are ruthless.
Very.
You have a maximum development timeline of 3 months. You are forbidden from adding nice-to-have features. You have to solve one core problem exceptionally well.
Which requires selecting the right technology stack.
Right.
If you're building an agency MVP, your stack might be purely visual. You use Make.com as the central nervous system, integrate it with the OpenAI or Anthropic SOD API for the brain of the operation.
And what about data storage?
You use Airtable as a flexible spreadsheet-like database to store the results. It's incredibly fast to deploy.
But if you're building that actual software product, the dental scheduler, SaaS, you need a much more robust architecture.
You do.
You're looking at Python for the back-end logic, React to build the user interface so it looks like a modern web app, and then you need a framework to actually manage the AI models, like LangChain.
Yeah, LangChain is a critical piece of the puzzle here. When you build a complex application, you don't just plug into a language model and hope for the best.
Right.
A model on its own doesn't have memory of previous interactions, and it can't natively search a proprietary database.
So LangChain acts as the connective tissue.
Exactly. It allows your app to string together multiple complex steps, like taking a user's request, securely searching the clinic's specific database for an open slot, formatting that data, and then having the model write a personalized email to the patient.
Wow, okay.
Keeps the system grounded and prevents it from hallucinating false information.
So we've validated the idea. We've got 10 dentists who paid for early access. We understand the connective tissue of LangChain, and we're building our 3-month MVP.
Yep.
But the moment money changes hands, we are no longer just experimenting. We have legal liability, we have business structures, and we have to figure out how to keep the lights on.
The fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's dig into the brass tacks here, the financial reality, particularly looking at the Indian startup ecosystem, which the guide uses to provide some fantastic concrete guardrails.
The capital requirements in this market force you to be highly strategic. Like if you're starting an automation service business in India, you should expect estimated startup costs to range from 8 lakh to 20 lakh rupees.
Okay.
That gives you enough runway to cover legal setup, basic tech infrastructure, a small team, and crucially, 6 months of working capital.
But bootstrapping a product business, developing that proprietary software, is a completely different financial reality.
Completely different.
The estimates jump massively to an initial investment of 35 lakh to 1 crore rupees.
Yeah, it's a huge leap. And that leap is exactly why you have to structure your company correctly from day one.
Because the legal structure you choose dictates your future access to capital, right?
Exactly. For a service business, starting as a limited liability partnership, or LLP, is highly recommended.
Makes sense.
It offers operational flexibility, simpler compliance, and it protects your personal assets if things go sideways.
But an LLP won't cut it if you need venture capital to fund that massive 1 crore product development.
Not at all. Venture capitalists, major players like Excel or Sequoia Capital India, they simply won't invest in an LLP.
Oh, really?
No. The mechanics of equity, issuing preferred shares, and establishing a formal board of directors that requires a private limited company structure.
Okay, got it.
VCs need a standardized, highly regulated corporate entity to inject funds into. So if your goal is hyper-growth and institutional funding, you either start as a private limited, or you must plan for a complex, expensive conversion process later.
And regardless of how you structure the company, there is a massive compliance hurdle that acts as a gatekeeper. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, the DPDPA,
Yes.
because handling user data, especially in a system processing patient emails or financial records, it isn't just about slapping a generic privacy policy on your website anymore.
Not at all. Data privacy has fundamentally shifted from a legal afterthought to a core architectural feature.
Right.
The DPDPA mandates strict consent mechanisms and the principle of data minimization. If your application pulls more personal data than it explicitly needs to perform a specific task, you're violating the law.
Wow.
You have to actively design your database schemas to automatically purge data when it's no longer required.
Which brings us back to the most critical operational decision of all. Here's where it gets really interesting. How do you actually price these tools?
Yes.
We talked about this paradox right at the start.
The 10-hour job done in 10 minutes.
Exactly. If I build an AI that does a 10-hour data entry job in 10 minutes, charging by the hour suddenly ruins my business model, right? If I charge $50 an hour, my brilliant automation just earned me $8. I'm literally penalizing myself for being good at my job.
And this is why the entire industry is aggressively moving toward outcome-based pricing. You have to fully divorce the concept of value from the concept of human time.
So how does that function in a real client contract? Like, if I don't bill hours, what do I bill?
You build a tangible result. Instead of telling a client, I'll charge you $1,000 a week to manually process your sales leads, you structure the agreement to say, I will charge you 500 rupees for every fully qualified lead that gets seamlessly booked into your sales calendar.
Because the client fundamentally does not care if a human spent 3 days qualifying those leads or if an algorithm did it in 3 seconds.
Exactly. They only care about having a warm lead on their calendar.
Right.
And by pricing based on the outcome, if your system processes 100 leads in 10 minutes, you've just generated immense value for the client and captured a highly profitable margin for yourself.
It's brilliant.
It solves the rampant issue of underpricing, which is pitfall number 2 in the guide. Many technical founders calculate their server costs, their API usage, and a modest hourly wage, and they severely undercharge.
So what's the rule of thumb?
The structural rule here is to calculate all your hard costs, factor in the development complexity, and then add a healthy 30 to 50% margin strictly based on the market value of the result delivered.
You use outcome-based pricing to capture the massive upside of your efficiency. And maybe you implement a monthly retainer model for the ongoing maintenance and optimization of those systems, creating predictable recurring revenue.
Yep, it aligns your financial success directly with the client's business success. It creates a true partnership rather than just a vendor-client friction point.
All right, let's look at the trajectory. You validated the demand, you built the MVP, you set up the private limited company, you are fully compliant with data laws, and you're generating incredible margins. You've achieved success.
You made it.
But from what I'm seeing in the guide, success in this space brings its own set of incredibly dangerous, company-killing pitfalls. How do you scale an operation like this without the whole thing collapsing under its own weight?
That transition separates technicians from true business builders.
Mhm.
To survive scaling, you have to adopt the AIM automation framework.
AIM,
It
right.
stands for Assess, Implement, Maintain. It means turning the lens of efficiency inward.
Practice what you preach. If I'm selling automation to dental clinics, my own onboarding, client billing, and internal lead generation better not be running on manual spreadsheets.
Exactly. You assess your own internal bottlenecks. Where's your team spending repetitive hours? You implement the very same tools you sell to automate your internal operations. And you maintain and monitor those systems constantly.
But internal automation alone won't save you if your fundamental market strategy is flawed.
No, it won't.
A major trap here, pitfall number 3, is the desire to serve everyone.
Oh, yeah. Walking into a networking event and saying, we build AI for any business is a terrible pitch.
It's the fastest way to be ignored. You have to dominate a specific niche.
Right.
A generalized solution is easily replaceable by the next generic software update from a major tech company. But a highly specialized solution, like an inventory prediction model exclusively tailored for cold chain pharmaceutical logistics, it becomes utterly indispensable.
But that indispensability creates a mirror image danger, which is pitfall number 6.
Yeah.
Over-reliance on a single client.
Ah,
There is a hard structural rule to follow for survival. No single client should make up more than 20 to 25% of your total revenue.
I really love that rule. Having one client make up 50% of your revenue isn't owning a business. It's just having a highly stressful corporate job where you don't get any HR benefits or paid time off.
Yes, exactly.
You are completely at their mercy. If they decide to pivot or pull their contract, your entire operation folds overnight.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, mitigating that existential risk requires you to hit specific revenue milestones so you can actually afford diversification.
Right.
In the Indian context, the critical growth stage is hitting between 15 lakh and 50 lakh rupees per month.
Okay, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, and at that threshold, your focus as a founder has to shift entirely. You can't just be the best programmer or the best salesperson anymore. You have to systematize delivery and aggressively scale customer acquisition.
You stop building the product and you start building the machine that builds the product.
Spot on. To reach true scale, that 50 lakh to 2 crore per month mark, the founder must actively replace themselves.
Systematize everything.
You have to document standard operating procedures, or SOPs,
Yeah.
for every single task, from how code is reviewed to how a sales email is formatted.
Wow, okay.
You use those SOPs to hire highly trained specialists to replace the early-stage generalist who helped you start.
Because if the business cannot run for 2 weeks while the founder is on a beach without constant Slack messages, it isn't a scalable business. It's a bottlenecked personality cult.
And that bottleneck leads to the final trap, pitfall
Yeah.
number 10, founder burnout.
Oof, yeah.
Working unsustainably long hours, constantly fighting fires, and never delegating. The business requires the founder to have a clear head to make strategic, macro-level decisions.
Right.
If you're exhausted from writing code at 3 a.m., you will miss the market trends that could wipe out your company.
It's the ultimate paradox of the startup journey. You have to work obsessively to build the engine and get the plane off the ground, but eventually you have to lock in the autopilot and step out of the cockpit if you want to cross the ocean.
Beautifully put.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today on this deep dive. We started by diagnosing the 2026 landscape, realizing the generic gold rush is over, and the real value lies in building industry-specific, customized tools. We tore down the instinct to just build, focusing instead on the absolute mandate of market validation and proving the river exists before building the bridge.
We navigated the financial and legal mechanics of the Indian startup ecosystem, looking at the leap from an LLP to a private limited company to secure VC funding.
And the strict realities of data compliance.
Yes. And we unpacked the mechanism of outcome-based pricing to avoid punishing our own efficiency.
Right.
And finally, we mapped out how to survive scaling by systematizing operations and avoiding those lethal traps of client over-reliance and founder burnout.
It's a rigorous, practical blueprint that strips away the magic of AI and replaces it with solid, fundamental business mechanics. And that is exactly what the market requires right now.
It really is.
The technology is here, the infrastructure is maturing, and traditional industries are desperate for efficiency. The only question left is whether you will be the one building these solutions. So what does this all mean for you? If you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect technical breakthrough, this blueprint proves that flawless execution, deep market alignment, and specialized business logic are far more valuable than raw code.
It does leave us with one final, somewhat provocative concept to consider.
No, what's that?
Well, if the barrier to entry for building complex software continues to plummet, if visual tools and frameworks democratize development so much that anyone can build a functional application, will the ultimate differentiator for a successful business in the future be purely human?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. When you and your competitor eventually have access to the exact same hyper-intelligent technological capabilities, does winning the market simply come down to human empathy, your ability to build deep trust, and traditional relationship building?
That is a deeply fascinating question and the perfect place to leave it. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive.